Okay, so we've addressed server, client, and communications issues. I wanted to sort of deal with the more holistic aspects of the problems that internet voting confronts, and that some of the critics have listed. In particular, the fact that the Chinese government has been able to penetrate um, Google's security, other companies' security, and allegedly the high-level security systems in the United States belonging to the government. And opponents of internet voting argue that if a foreign government like the Chinese has the capability of doing these kind of things, then it shouldn't be too hard for them also to violate the security of internet voting systems. What do you say to that?
Yeah, well, that's a very important point because it's one of the biggest scare stories that the opponents tell, especially with China. China hacked into the Google email system and was reading Google's emails looking for traitors or spies or something like that. And the question is, uh, if they can break into Google's system, and Google has certainly got all the security protection available, then they can break into some county's internet voting server. However, you got to remember that Google knew what it was getting into when they went to China, and they knew they were playing with fire, and they agreed, for example, to allow the Chinese to operate the system to block access to websites with about religion or about politics. And so there was lots of Chinese engineers involved with the Google operation. Each one of those engineers could report what he knew to a central agent in the Chinese government, and they could take that information and they could reverse engineer the entire security code that Google was using just by learning pieces here and pieces there. And so Google was playing with fire and they got burned. But it's not the fault of the security system. It was human involvement that manipulated the system.
Well,
Yeah. Go
presumably
ahead.
the Pentagon doesn't employ Chinese coders for its work, and
Yeah.
it's apparently been hacked as well, and presumably they have heavy security there.
Yeah.
How do you eliminate that kind of hacking as a potential impediment to internet voting?
Well, the first problem is you have to look at the case itself, just like we did with China. There really is no general ability to break into any system, which is what the opponents to internet voting want you to think. And you have to look at what happened. Like there was a personnel records were broken into in one base. So it sounds like you say the military was hacked, but it was one base in one area, and it was only the personnel records that were broken into. And we don't
Well,
know.
but even that, and the fact it's my understanding that plans for fighter jets have been hacked at private companies and so on, and that they of course want to protect that. It's the highest level of national security information, and those systems have been hacked successfully as well. And just generally the idea that technology and teams of people exist who can hack essentially any system that exists. And what's to protect internet voting from attacks from entities such as that?
Well, I don't think that there's evidence for your statement
Okay.
that they can hack into any system that they want to. That's the scary story. That's the myth. But you have to look at the banks, the e-commerce companies, and what was actually lost by the military, and how damaging was the hack, and who was responsible, who had the knowledge, and who did they share it with, the knowledge of the security code. It's not like somebody logs on to a website and then figures out all the ways to get in there and steal information. Usually they have some kind of help.
Right. Well, but the teams, say from the Chinese government or teams of Russian hackers, have the ability apparently to violate the security of almost any system. I haven't heard that NSA, the National Security Agency, has been hacked, but the Pentagon has been, and presumably they're as well protected as any county voting system is going to be. So I'm wondering how you can argue that it's not possible for teams of committed, motivated hackers to violate an internet voting system.
Okay. Let's take a look at e-commerce. Now, e-commerce is a little different. Banking or buying stuff online, it's a little different than internet voting because with e-commerce, your name has to stay connected with the transaction at all times. And like I said earlier, with internet voting, the first module isolates your name from the vote, and thereafter, your name and your vote are not connected. However, the quality of security that is used in e-commerce, major corporations, huge banks, billions of dollars, that they're not suffering from hackers from Russia who just go in and withdraw money from somebody's bank account whenever they want to. There are circumstances there that make it exceptional, and generally the rule is that the systems are very secure, and they become news when they get hacked because it's so unusual, and there's always some kind of extraneous circumstances that explain this particular hack.
Okay, you've expressed your confidence that these systems internet voting systems can be built that can't be hacked. Why don't you talk as we finish up about the benefits of internet voting and why you think, having said that the security issues can be dealt with, why you think having internet voting would be a good idea?
Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to mention one other criticism that the anti-internet voters raised, because we didn't discuss that, and that's the problem of auditability. For example, if you have a vote with paper and somebody challenges the vote, you can recount the paper. And so the opponents of internet voting say that internet voting can't be audited, therefore you can't have a recount. And I wanted to say that that's not true, that internet voting can be audited. You can begin by matching the number of voters who logged on in the first module and the number of votes that were counted in the third module and the second module, and if they all match up, that's an auditing process. And you have the electronic witnesses. The electronic witnesses record all the events for each module. You can audit what the electronic witnesses say, and if there was any going off course, then you have a record of that. So internet voting can be audited. And finally, you know, this is a debate about public policy. Should the United States go to internet voting, and what good would it do, and is the benefit worth the risks involved? And there are risks involved, but in a debate on public policy, reasonable people don't rest their decisions on scary stories. They look for facts, they look for evidence, they look for experience, like the experience of internet voting in Europe and Canada. So that's an important point to remember. You know, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were told by their experts that if Columbus tried to sail west to get to India, his ships would fall off the edge of the earth and the royal investment would be lost. Today we know that that was just a scary story and not true. And the same thing with the Pony Express. Suppose the Pony Express riders were to say, we can't deliver the mail, we have to ride through hostile Indian territory and we might get scalped. That wouldn't be a problem for me, but it could be a problem for other people. Or consider the Um, let's see. Oh, the railroads. The railroads have the same problem. Should they deliver the mail, or not deliver the mail? Because Jesse James is out there and Billy the Kid. If they had let scary stories stop them from going forward, our national economy wouldn't have grown as much as it has as in the past. So it's very important for people to use reason and let reason overcome fear. Don't let fear overcome reason.
Well, why don't you say something about who is supporting internet voting now and who's opposing it, and why, and how you feel the issue is going to work out as a matter of public policy, and what possibilities exist for changing public policy to favor the adoption of internet voting?
Well, there's a couple of political scientists named Hall and Alvarez, and they've been studying internet voting as a social policy issue for 20 years. And they found that actually independents and Republicans are more favorably disposed towards internet voting than are the progressives and the Democrats. But it's the traditionally in our country, it's the liberals, the leftist types, who are most in favor of making changes. So on the basis of those two principles, the people who usually favor change, being the most afraid of change because of all the scary stories, that presents a very serious historical dilemma for proponents of internet voting to overcome. Of course, the vendors favor it, and in our last talk, I mentioned the secretaries of state favor it because it's cheaper and easier to manage. So I think that people will increasingly support internet voting if they understand how it's going to work for them. And if I might just take one more minute to relate that. Imagine yourself watching political debates on TV, and as that debate ends, you turn to your PC or your cell phone, and you log on to your county's website, voting website, and you vote. None of the super rich corporations or wealthy special interests that like to run multi-million-dollar ad campaigns to change people's minds can affect your vote, because you've watched the debate and you turn and you make your vote. Therefore, all the power of running ad campaigns that we see in our typical political campaigns would be neutered or neutralized. Secondly, internet voting could make all elected officials directly dependent on the voter. With internet voting, you don't need a lot of campaign money, because you just show up at the studio to participate in the debates, and the voting takes place after the debates. So this would shift the legislative culture and the administrative culture in the U.S. government more towards the public interest than it's ever been before. And as people realize that's the possibility we have, then the scary stories are going to become a lot less effective, and then people are going to demand from all their elected officials that we have internet voting.
Okay, I want to thank you for your work in the field and for talking to us about it today on Etopia News.
Yeah, thanks again for this opportunity, Mark. Nice talking with you.
Nice talking to you.